This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com. Brent Allen Winters. But you can find my name at commonlawyer.com. Question number 122 through 125. Let's do those. What is a post road? According to our U.S. Constitution, what is a post road? Answer: a place where where letters carried from one part of the country to another at the expense of the United States are received and delivered. Notice he says at the expense of the United States. The United States is to provide post offices and post roads at the expense of the United States. If there isn't a road that would get the mail to you, they're to make sure there is some kind of a road or a way to get the mail to you. When my grandparents and my parents were coming up, they've told me the mail carriers rode on mules or drove buggies. They got the mail. They drove it down the road. Not fancy, but roads were provided. If there wasn't a road there, they would make one. Well, that's what the Constitution says they're supposed to do. They're supposed to provide post offices, that's the buildings where the mail is sorted and sent out, and post roads. Does our Constitution of the United States say anything about delivering mail, or is that supposed to happen at government expense? No. What does it say? They're at government expense, U.S. government expense, they're supposed to provide post offices and post roads. I remember distinctly. I've told you this. I wasn't allowed to graduate from high school until I passed a pretty rigorous Constitution test. That's the way it was where I lived. That was the law where I lived. They wouldn't graduate me in that county unless I could prove that I had some basic understanding of the fundamentals of the Constitution of the United States. I spent a year preparing for that examination. And you've heard me say this, I learned more about the Constitution of the United States preparing for that exam when I was getting ready to get out of high school. I learned more about the Constitution of the United States there than I did going to law school for 3 years. I didn't learn, well, I learned fundamentals about law. That was good. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying nothing wrong, I suppose, with what I did learn in law school. It just wasn't as rigorous, and it wasn't as much attention given. I'm glad it happened. That's what we're trying to do here. What did we do when I was learning the Constitution in high school? We asked questions, and then we kicked answers around, just like we're doing here. I learned it. I thought, well, maybe I learned it doing this, and so maybe if I go over it, other people can learn it too. This is the laws of nature. Our Constitution talks of the laws of nature, and the laws of nature is God. The laws of nature, that's our common law tradition, our law of the land. Our Constitution of the United States is a significant slice of our common law tradition, called common law of government, different than all other countries in the world. Our Constitution did not do anything new. It was not the product of geniuses. Or did men said, you know, we got this common law tradition, let's keep it. Let's just put it down on paper so we have some guidance and it's more firm. They're just writing down what they knew. We didn't change anything in America. All we did when we separated from Britain was change management and shore up our common law tradition at every point. Justice James Wilson, on the first panel of the U.S. Supreme Court. There were 3 justices on that first panel. He said, in America, we do not have the common law as it stood in England at the time of our separation from Britain. No, we had the same common law, but we reached back and established it here in America as it stood before the Norman invasion of 1066. That's true. But when I was in law school, we read a lot of cases from England, Australia, Canada, more from America. But this is a common tradition, my friends, in common law countries. It's a Christian tradition, our common law is. It's a tradition of chivalry. Chivalry. What's chivalry? People think chivalry has something to do fundamentally with knights and fighting. No, it doesn't. Even more fundamentally than that, it has to do with the relationship and the roles of men and women. That's chivalry. A chivalrous man is a gentleman. That's another word in our common law tradition that the rest of the world doesn't have. What's a gentleman? He's gentle to the female of the species. That's a gentleman. Is he gentle to his enemies? No, he tries to kill them, to put it bluntly. But he's gentle to the female. That's chivalry. And without gentleness to the female, without respect of your mother, without gentleness to your daughters, your nieces, your wife, your friends, the female of the species, you're not chivalrous, you're not a gentleman, you're an animal. We're in 122, post offices and post roads. The U.S. Postal Service, it's unlawful, it's unconstitutional for the U.S. Postal Service to carry mail. Our Constitution gives no authority to the government of the United States to carry mail. I'm not the first one to say this. A lot of people have said that. I had a congressman at home. Well, he wasn't, not at home. He was in the Midwest, but it was back in our neck of the woods. It wasn't California. It wasn't the left coast or the right coast. Every year he put a bill in Congress to outlaw, specifically outlaw, the U.S. Postal Service from carrying mail. You're getting a feel for the world I grew up in, the politics of it. We believe that. I still believe it. Why? The Constitution clearly teaches it. You see, the general government in Washington, D.C. has no authority to do anything that the Constitution doesn't expressly state it has the authority to do. And that list is very short, by the way. And no place in the Constitution do you find express authority given to carry mail. You find express authority given to make sure that there are post offices, buildings, and roads. Well, then who's going to carry the mail? Not only has Congress been stupid enough and unconstitutional enough to say that the U.S. government can carry mail, U.S. Postal Service, but then they said, we passed a bill that said nobody else can carry mail. Nobody else can carry letters for a fee. Congress, against all of our common law tradition, against our Constitution, has passed legislation giving the U.S. Postal Service an absolute monopoly on carrying mail. That's contrary. I quote Justice Lord Coke from England. His commentaries on Magna Carta are authoritative. He said all monopolies are unlawful because they're against the liberty of the individual, and they are against our common law tradition. Liberty of the individual, that's right. It stops me from exercising my freedom and carrying mail for money. If somebody wants me to carry a letter from this town to that town and gives me $10 to do it and says you got to get it there quick, did you know that's well, it's unconstitutional, but Congress will prosecute you if you do that. That's why FedEx does not carry letters unless they're in a package. You can put a letter in a package. They deliver packages, but FedEx won't carry a letter in an envelope. It's kind of an arbitrary distinction too, isn't it? Monopoly. Why does the U.S. government want a monopoly on carrying letters? They've been doing it for decades. I'm under legislation to give them that monopoly. I'll tell you exactly why. I know why, and I've experienced it. And I've watched other people experience it. Because until email, until very recently, that's how they kept track of who everybody was communicating with by the U.S. Postal Service. All you got to do is the federal government would ask a government agent called the local postmaster or a local mail carrier, did so-and-so get any letters? Keep track of the letters that so-and-so is getting so we know who they're communicating with. Happens all the time. Been happening for decades. During the war between the northern and the southern tiers of the states, the push was put on to make sure that there was a post office in every little crossroad in America. Every place where they wanted to make sure that everybody had easy access to a post office so we can keep track of who you're communicating with. They called it a national security question, but it's unconstitutional. And it's against the liberty and the privacy, my friends, of the individual. I have had clients that the government was prosecuting criminally and falsely, but they were. And the postmasters in these little tiny settlements and towns, when confronted and said, "Are you keeping track of who my client is communicating with?" Tears start coming down. Couldn't even say it, just shook their head. Because they're working for the evil empire, but they want to make a living. They want that money. My friend, if you're working for the government, state or federal, and you know you're doing things that are unlawful, and you know that you do it so you can keep your job, maybe you're a police officer. You're doing things that are unlawful so you can keep your job. You'll answer to Jesus Christ someday for it. And if your answer is wrong, you'll suffer the consequences. He is the judge, from whose decision there is no appeal. And when I stand before him and he says, "Why should I accept you?" There's only one answer that's right. Mr. Winters, or so-and-so, anybody, why did you do things that were unlawful, not according to the laws of nature that I have established, our common law tradition, our Constitution of the United States, which are part of those? Why did you do that? Well, I wanted to keep my job. Oh, so you were willing to abuse the liberties of other people so you could have a living. Everybody worked for the Russian government, for the communist Chinese government, the government of North Korea and a lot of other countries. That's why they are doing all those evil things to people, because they got to make a living. What does God call us to do? He calls us to trust him and do what he wants us to do and trust him. It takes trust to be a Christian man. To live the Christian life takes trust. Oh, to just say, "I'm a Christian," that doesn't take any trust. You got to live it. That takes trust. It's not easy. It's scary even sometimes. But I would rather face hardship now, humiliation, criticism. Yes, I would. I know you would too. Than to stand before Jesus Christ and him say, "Why did you abuse other people that way when you know what the law is?" Now that I've told you about post offices and post roads, and you work for the post office and you're doing the bidding of your masters and violating the privacy of other people, trespassing upon their liberties, now you're really responsible. That's what makes our country work, individual people. Doing the right thing. No, not doing the kind thing. It may be kind, it may not. It may appear kind, it may not. Right is what pleases our God. And other people may not like it. You may not even enjoy it. I've done things in life, and you have too, that you just knew you had to do, but it wasn't pleasant, but it's what God wanted. Jesus Christ did what he didn't want to do, but he subjected his will to the Father and did it because he promised the Father he would do it. That's law. When a sovereign being, a sovereign, the creator of heaven and earth and all that in them is, Jesus Christ, when he makes an undertaking, a commitment to the Father, another member of the Godhead, an inter-Godhead commitment. Oh, the Bible tells us there was an inter-Godhead commitment, a set of promises and undertakings. And they don't lie to each other. They're in perfect sync and agreement about all things, as hard as it is. Even to their own hurt, they do it. To the Father's hurt. The Bible says he is the one that caused the crucifixion of his only begotten, his uniquely begotten Son, born of a virgin. He caused it. Jesus Christ submitted to it. Why? To redeem you and me, God's people, his elect. It wasn't pleasant, but when the sovereign creator makes a promise, a commitment, he follows through. It's law. Duty arises out of law. Well, 122. Let's keep going. 123. What is meant by establishing post offices and post roads? Answer. Making a law. Congress has a duty to make a law directing where post offices shall be, and funding the building of buildings where post offices are, and by what roads mail shall be carried, designating, and even, in some cases, building a road. Some persons say that this includes power to erect buildings for post offices and to make roads where they are needed. That's me. I believe that's what this expressly says. Well, it just says it point blank. The federal government, at the expense of the federal government, is responsible for ensuring there are post offices and post roads. They are not permitted. The Constitution of the United States bars them, the general government in Washington, D.C., from carrying letters for money, and how much more so having a monopoly on so doing. You see, what the Constitution envisions, mail is important. That's the way people, until very recently, communicated, especially over long distances. And we know that there will be no commerce without a free, unimpeded flow of communication. We put up telegraph wires then telephones, now internet, and it's free. And then anybody who impedes that communication is impeding the progress and the prosperity of our country. Are they doing it? You better believe they're trying to impede communication on the internet. Sure, they're monitoring it, of course. That's contrary to the first principles of our Constitution of the United States, not to mention privacy, which is a first principle protected. Our Constitution of the United States protects it. Don't you know as well as I do, both FedEx and UPS, if the government were taken out of carrying letters, FedEx and UPS and others, man, they'd be in there like ugly on an ape, like white on rice. Hey, we'll carry mail. They want that business, and they will start competing. That will drive the price down, and they're good at what they do. At any moment, 24/7, 24 hours a day, every second, you ask somebody at FedEx or UPS, where's my package? Bing! They'll tell you exactly where it is. The U.S. Postal Service doesn't do that, can't do it. Why? They don't care. They got a monopoly. Why should they? They're not in competition with anybody. They get paid either way. That's why monopolies are always bad business. I was at a gas station on an engine reservation the other day. I think I told you this story not long ago. Oh, it's been a few weeks now. There was a half-breed engine. He's a buddy of mine. I see him all the time. He's half white, half tribal, which means he's tribal, if he wants to be, and he is. He runs the gas station on the reservation. Piece of a feller. He's standing at the counter. He runs the whole caboodle there. He's standing at the counter. He looks across the road at the white boy's gas station. He said, oh boy. He's talking. I said, what do you mean, oh boy? He said, they just dropped it 0.2% over there. He hollers at one of the employees. He said, get over here. We got to drop it 0.3%. That's Americanism in action, my friends. It's beautiful, isn't it? They'd all have the prices as high as they could. If he was the only gas station in town, he'd be skinning the white boys all the time. He'd be skinning me. I like him, but that's business. But when there's two gas stations in town, one's tribal and one isn't, or just two gas stations. In this case, it was one tribal and one red and one white. Boy, they're like this 24/7 there. A little tiny town. I just smiled and shook my head and said, boy, ain't it great to be in America, where our laws say that monopolies are against the law, where our courts break monopolies up because they're against our common law, because they're against the freedom of the individual. They're against competition, see. Monopolies can't exist, friends, without government force and threat of force. Monopolies only exist by government force and threat of force. The monopoly that the Postal Service has on carrying letters only exists because they tell us all, if you try to get in this game and compete with the U.S. government, we will send your carcass to jail. It's a crime. That's wrong. It's our duty to say so and to just constantly say so. That's how we keep things straight in America, and we enjoy freedom and wealth like God wants us to. Question 124. Has Congress any farther? That's proper. Not further with a U, but farther. In this case, further. Well, now, wait a minute. No, I think, now I'm wondering, Miss Francine, I've got to go back and look at the difference between farther and further. I had it in my head. It's funny then when you start looking at it. Like, did you ever look at a word, Miss Francine? And a word you've used 1,000 times a day, and all of a sudden it looks weird to you and sounds weird. Have you ever done that?
Yes, that happens at 10 o'clock at night. And it's farther is distance. Farther is distance. So
yeah.
And I know you knew that.
Well, no, but I'm thrown off here because he uses it. He doesn't use it for distance, F-A-R-T-H-E-R. He uses it to talk about farther powers. That didn't sound right to me. My ear it grated a little. And you're saying no? That would not be proper today. We would say further powers, right?
Yes.
Farther is a fur piece down the road. A fur piece down the road is farther, F-A-R-T-H-E-R. And this is further. Anyway, has Congress any farther, I say further powers? It may grant what are termed patent rights and copyrights. Yes, and what does this mean? 125. When a person has found out some new and useful contrivance, Congress may give him an exclusive right to make and sell what he has contrived for a certain number of years. During that time, nobody else may make or sell that article without leave from the man who contrived it, license from the man who contrived it. And if they do, they are liable to be punished. This is criminal stuff. This is in the Constitution of the United States, and Congress has passed laws to enforce it. They have, under the necessary and proper clause, our Constitution says that where a power is granted specifically, expressly, the Congress has power to pass laws that are necessary and proper to enforce its powers. Necessary and proper. That's the requirements of legislation. Number one, it has to be something, Congress, to pass legislation, it has to pass legislation concerning something that our Constitution of the United States expressly says, clearly. Number two, it has to be necessary to put that constitutional provision in place. If it's not necessary, let me give you an example. This is a little different, I guess. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. What does that mean? Congress shall make no law. Let's start with that clause. Break it down. Just take it one step at a time. Congress shall make no law, none. What? Respecting any religious establishment. That's just first base. Does that provision of our Constitution of the United States, is there any law that Congress could pass that was necessary to put that in place, to enforce that? In that case, no. It's not necessary, and it's not proper. Let me give you another one. In the Bill of Rights, we see these. A well-regulated militia being necessary. See that word necessary? There it is again. Necessary to the security of a free state. The right, that is the duty of the people, that is the militiamen, to keep and bear arms, a weapon, a firearm, shall not be encroached upon, shall not be infringed. Is there any legislation that is necessary to enforce that? And the answer is no. No, it's all right there. We call it constitutional carry, right? You pass a piece of legislation that says, well, you can get a permit from the government if they let you. It's called concealed carry permit. You can do that if they let you, but they got to let you. No, we don't need that. We call it constitutional carry. Some states call themselves constitutional carry states. What does that mean? That means we don't need any laws to help the Second Amendment. We don't need to pass any laws to help the First Amendment religion clauses. To do so would be unnecessary and improper. We got it right there. We don't need anything else. And once you start doing legislation, you got problems. See, legislators say, well, the sheriff has to give you permission to have a concealed carry permit. That's not in the Constitution. You see the problem? Yeah, a lot of states have said that's unconstitutional. Missouri has done that. We're not doing that. They say, we call it constitutional carry. I call churches that do not try to rely on any law for their existence. I call them constitutional churches. You don't need to rely on a statute. If you settle a trust. There's no statute you need to rely on. Just settle the trust. It's part of our common law tradition. Yeah, patent rights. What I say about patents, I get from my brother, my older brother. My older brother's a patent lawyer. I'll tell you what I learned from him about patents. Patents are for useful inventions. He's a copyright lawyer too. Copyright is for useful explanations of those inventions. That's really what all that means. To use copyright laws for silly stuff like rap music has nothing to do with useful inventions. And really there never was intended to be a connection. Rap music has no protection, strictly speaking, from the Constitution of the United States. The reason these are two are together is because of inventions, patents. And when you make a patent, then you might write a book explaining your machine or your invention. And that's why we have copyright. And we've added copyright. Say, well, newspapers have copyright rights. I've even copyrighted my trust documents sometimes. The law says I can. I'm not convinced that the Constitution of the United States means that. And I say that on the studied opinion and long practice of my brother, my older brother, who's a patent lawyer. Yeah. Well, let's get down to what the Constitution says. That's what we're trying to do here. America has been the king in all the world of patents. I remember things like this. The Phillips head screwdriver. What a story. The slot head, the clutch head. The clutch head screw and the clutch head screwdriver. Patented in a common law country up in Canada. The Phillips head. What an invention. Came about in the 1930s, and I see the advantages. I could improve, I think, upon it, but it's pretty good. Pretty good. I had a 52 Chevy pickup truck when I was younger. Had a straight six in it, 3/4 ton suspension, 17-inch wheels, my friends. For those of you that know about wheels, unheard of. Things on those old Chevy pickup trucks in the early 50s were very much different. Vacuum-powered wipers operated on a vacuum system from the motor manifold. Real India rubber seal around the split windshield flat at that point. It wasn't curved yet until the late, I forget when that came, but by the 60s it was. Just two flat pieces. Vacuum wipers. Simple straight six motor. 3/4 ton suspension, that's heavy for a small pickup truck. Built like a tank, 17-inch wheels. And then it had another thing that was different than everything else. The body was put together with clutch head screws. I had to go to I'd work on it, work on the doors, rebuild the carburetor, rebuilt the rear end. When I'd work on it, I went to Hutton's parts store, and I said, I need a clutch head screwdriver. So I had to pull out. No, you couldn't do it with a straight slot. So they had to order one for me. That is an invention. The clutch head and different kinds of clutch head invented by a fellow in Canada. It transformed, but not as much as the Phillips head screwdriver transformed. Henry Ford's assembly line, my friends. Oh yeah. He claimed it saved him over $2 a car. Well, you're making manufacturing, $2 adds up after a number of cars, and he was saving money so he could provide the cars cheaper. Henry Ford was pretty innovative. He told the people that, what was it they were providing? The fuel pump for his Model T? Oh, no, it was a transmission. And he made a deal with the bells that were producing the transmissions that he was putting in his Model Ts. He said, I won't buy your transmissions. I won't give you the contract unless you send it to me in a wooden box. So I said, well, we send all our transmission in pine boxes. He said, okay, but no. He said, your wooden boxes that you send to me have to meet a certain specification. What do you mean? Well, he said, the boards that you make the box out of have to be a certain width and a certain length. Well, the transmission's this long, they'd be this long here, and on the other side, they'd be this long. He said, that's what I want. He said, if you don't do that, I won't buy your transmissions. You see what he was doing? He was taking those boxes that the transmission came in, and for every car that got a transmission, those were the boards that fit to make the floorboards. See how he was shaving? That's what an innovative man does, and thereby makes things cheaper and more accessible to us. The Phillips head screwdriver was like that too, and the Phillips head screw, and the clutch head screw in other ways. That all happened because those people that did that, about those different kind of screws and screwdrivers, sought patent protection. I don't think the patent protection went out for the Phillips head screw and the screwdriver. It expired in the 1950s. During my time here on this earth. Well, that's patent rights. We left off at 125. This is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com. Brent Allen Winters. But you can find my name at commonlawyer.com.